Hey guys, it's Carl Brown here from GuitarLessons365.com. I thought I'd do a little bit different video than my typical song lesson that I usually send out to you guys. I get a lot of questions and comments whenever I release a song that it is in a tuning different than standard tuning. You can tell a lot of people if they don't have a lot of experience playing guitar, when you say something's in D, they automatically think it's in drop D, when it's not always the case. So I thought I'd do a quick little video just so you fully understand what an open tuning is, what a drop tuning is, what a standard tuning is. And so you'll know if something's in D, you'll know, well, what is it? Is it in drop D or is it in D standard or an open D? So you'll know what the differences are of those, and hopefully it's going to be a quick little video and very easy for you to understand so you're not confused anymore. And we'll talk quickly at the end about electric tuner, how these notes will read out on an electric tuner like a chromatic tuner. All right, so now before I do it, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. If you like and comment the videos, it really helps YouTube send it out to a lot more of my subscribers so they can see this as well and get it to other people who need this knowledge as well on YouTube. So hopefully you do that for me. And if you are a beginner and you want some help just initially learning the skills, work you all the way up to advanced, check out my Guitar Academy. You'll see a link to that in the description below. That'll give you a free 7-day trial, that link too. I got two complete beginner courses and many other courses after you get through those beginner stuff, more advanced from technique, improvisation, ear training, theory, guitar tone. I'm live every weekend with just Academy members so they can ask me questions in real time, so it's a lot of fun. Hope you'll come join us. All right, now so standard tuning on the guitar, as you probably know already, is E, A, D, G, B, and E. So that's starting from the 6th string. So you probably already know what that tuning is. So what we generally call a standard tuning is what we're really referring to is the layout of the individual distance between each string. So we start with what we call standard tuning, E, A, D, G, B, and E. So I don't want to get too technical with you guys, but the distance between those strings is generally for most of those strings. So from the E string to the A string, it's what's called a perfect fourth. Okay, that's the distance, the interval between those two strings. And we have a perfect fourth again from the A to the D string, and then another perfect fourth from the D to the G. But when we go from the G string to the B string, that's actually a major third. So that's the only, in a standard tuning, that's the only string set that is not a perfect fourth. And then the last two strings going from the B to the high E, that's once again a perfect fourth. So what that configuration, that perfect fourth, major third, perfect fourth, that is what determines if something is in a standard configuration. So E standard is what's considered standard tuning on a guitar. So that's what most tuning you're going to use the most, depending on what style I guess you're in. But then we can alter that tuning to get what we call basically altered tunings. And so the most popular altered tuning is that's not in a standard configuration, let's just say, is a drop tuning. And the most popular one being drop D. So if you have all the 6 notes in standard, E, A, D, G, B, E, and we take that 6th string, that E on the 6th string, and we lower it a whole step to D, that is what is a drop tuning. So only one string changed. The other ones stay the same as if they're in standard tuning. But we took the low E string and we tuned it down a whole step to D. That is what a drop tuning is. So that is drop D. So the lowest pitch of the guitar now is going to be a D. So that's why we call it drop D. Now, that drop D, if you want to get a D standard, you have to take that standard configuration of tuning, which means that whatever that standard tuning, E, A, D, G, B, E, how all those strings are laid out apart from one another, you have to keep that the same. So we have drop D where we didn't keep that the same, but we have D standard where we do keep it the same by taking every string on the guitar and tuning them down a whole step. So drop D, you're just taking the low string down a whole step. D standard, you're going to keep that standard configuration by taking every string on the guitar and tuning it down the exact same distance, i.e. a whole step. So that's going to give you a different set of notes. That's going to give you D, G, C, F, A, and D. But the good thing about that tuning, so this like D standard, for instance, is very popular with like Motley Crue. Motley Crue uses it a lot. All the chords now work just like when you first learning guitar and you're playing the standard tuning a lot, and all your scale patterns and everything, they continue to work since every single string, the configuration of the strings didn't change, it's just the pitch of them did. So everything that you play in standard will work in D standard, it just sounds heavier and a lower pitch. So it's very popular to use because of that. You don't have to, when you take one string and you tune it down a whole step, it changes how you have to play your chords and your scales down on the lower E string and between the strings around it. So sometimes that facilitates, for instance, when you do drop D, that makes the power chords on those bottom 3 strings and bottom 2 strings, you can play it with one finger. So that kind of facilitates that type of playing where you can really move around very quick because each chord just takes one finger. But there's also other advantages to standard tuning because you can use your familiar chord shapes and it still works. So that's the difference. When somebody says something is in D, it does not automatically mean it is in drop D. It could be in D standard. And the difference is a drop tuning, you're just tuning down one string, and a D standard tuning, you're tuning all of them down across the entire guitar the exact same distance. In the case of D standard, you're tuning every string down a whole step. Now we have another popular standard configuration. This is probably maybe the second most used tuning in guitar, and it's E flat standard. So now we talked about what is a drop tuning is you're tuning one string down. Whenever you're doing an altered standard tuning, that means you're tuning all the strings down. So in this case, this is a very popular tuning for rock guitarists, is E flat standard. So that's taking every single string on the guitar that if it's in standard E standard tuning, the normal tuning, and tuning them down a half step instead of a whole step. So that means the E string becomes an E flat, and the A string becomes an A flat, and the D string becomes a D flat, G string becomes a G flat, B string a B flat, and the high E string will become an E flat. So that is a very common tuning. Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, many popular bands use that tuning. But that is still a standard configuration. So all the strings stayed in the same kind of distance from one another that they did in E standard. We just tuned everything down a whole step, every string down, as opposed to D standard where we tune everything down two half steps or a full whole step. So that's the difference there. But you're going to hear E standard, which is the traditional standard tuning on the guitar. E flat standard is every string on the guitar tuned down a half step. D standard is every string on the guitar tuned down a whole step. And if somebody says something, it is a drop tuning, typically the lowest string, the sixth string, is tuned down a whole step, and that's how you're getting that drop tuning. So we can also do a drop tuning when we're in that E flat standard tuning, which is very popular for rock and hard rock. You can do a drop tuning in that, where you basically take that E flat, so that's already, the whole guitar is already tuned down a half step, right? But now let's put that in a drop tuning. So we're going to take that E flat standard tuning, but we're going to take the sixth string and we're going to tune it down another whole step, which gives us now, instead of an E flat, a D flat. So this tuning is basically everything's a half step lower from drop D. So drop D, we are basically taking E standard and taking the sixth string and tuning it down a whole step. But in E flat standard, we're going to take a guitar that's already tuned down a half step across the entire guitar, and then tune that sixth string down a whole step. So that gives us D flat, drop D flat. This is probably more commonly referred to as drop C sharp. Now I wanted to get to this, you can call notes different names. They're what they call enharmonic. So I don't want to get too much into theory and stuff here. I more want to talk about what your tuner is going to read. So if you have a chromatic tuner, which means that you're going to be able to tune to any note you want, any string you want. So most tuners these days, I think, are chromatic tuners, and you can get them free apps on your phone or whatever. So so basically, what that would mean is some tuners will name altered notes. So basically, if something's not a natural note like a C or a D, if they want a flatted note like a D flat, Some tuners read those notes are on their screen as being flats. Some of them read them as sharps. I think a majority of tuners read them as sharps. So that's typically why you hear this tuning called drop C sharp tuning, not drop D flat. It's the exact same notes, but a D flat and a C sharp, they're the same note. Like I said, we're not going to get into theory, but I just wanted to warn you, you might look at your tuner and go, well, I need to get this in drop D flat, but I don't have a D flat on my tuner. You can figure out all this theory free at my website. Just go to guitarlessons365.com. You figure out how all this stuff works. But so if your tuner reads sharps, and for instance, in that drop D flat tuning, that's going to be the low string is going to be a C sharp. So and then that A flat is going to be read as a G sharp. And then the D flat is going to be read as a C sharp again for the fourth string. The third string, which we were calling a G flat, is actually going to be an F sharp if you read it, if your tuner reads sharps. And then the B flat is actually going to be called an A sharp. And then the high E string, the E flat is going to be called a D sharp. So I wanted to get that because it gets confusing when you look at your chromatic tuners. I guess my tuner doesn't have these notes. Your tuner is either going to read sharps or flats typically, and you need to know those altered notes and what to call them because of that. So some simple music theory it will help you figure out all the enharmonic spellings of notes. But that's what's going on there. So you basically we've covered standard tunings, which is basically a tuning configuration that can be used in E or E flat or D, and you're basically tuning all the strings down to the same distance. And then we have drop tunings, where we can take that E standard tuning and take the low string and tune it down a whole step to make it drop D. Or do that exact same treatment on the E flat tuning, so we can drop that down, the low E string down, and that'll give us drop D flat. And things get much lower than that. They have drop C, drop B, drop A. And this typically requires you to set your guitar up differently and have like thicker gauge strings because you're tuning everything down really, really low. But those are not as common. The most common ones are E standard, E flat standard, drop D. Those would be the big three heavy hitters that you're going to see a lot. And then from there, the lesser used ones would be D standard or drop C sharp and stuff. Those are going to those for hard rock and metal are going to take care of 90% of the stuff that you're going to see. But we also talked a little bit about open tunings. What is an open tuning? An open tuning is a tuning where the entire guitar is tuned to a chord. So when you learn your first chords back when you first started and you learn how to play like an E major chord or whatever, what an open tuning is that chord that you're holding, you tune each one of those strings wherever you're having to hold a note down on a string, you're going to tune that specific string to that note that you're holding. So if you're holding an E major chord, you'll tune that G string up to where it sounds like that note at the first fret, which is a G sharp. So the open string, you'll tune up a half step, and then the D string, you'll tune up to E, and then the A string, you'll tune up to B, and then the other strings can remain the same, and therefore you can just strum the strings open, and it's a big E major chord. Why would you do this? Well, it kind of frees up. There's a lot of good famous guitar players that use a variety of open tunings. So it's kind of unlimited. You can tune the guitar to any kind of chord if you know how to spell chords and create some really cool stuff. So it's used by especially a lot of acoustic guitars. Jimmy Page is brilliant at it and doing the stuff that. It's used a lot by people who play slide guitar because you don't really have the ability to kind of do all those chords, and you want to be able to play the slide is basically like a bar itself. So if the guitar is already tuned to a chord, then you can just kind of be sliding that chord around basically. So it's used a lot in that kind of styles. But open tunings are used far, far less. There are a couple of specialty tunings too. Like I said, there's a million tunings. We're trying to deal with common stuff. But you will hear like a double drop D tuning, which is where you take a standard tuned guitar. And once again, we get drop D by taking the sixth string and moving it down to a whole step to D. But you have another E string, right? You can drop that one down too. So you're basically dropping the E's on both sides of the guitar down a whole step. And that'd be kind of like double drop D, but that's used a lot less as well. Really the most important ones are understanding what a standard tuning is and how you can have E standard, E flat standard, or D standard. And then understanding what a drop tuning is, which is typically, majority of the time, you're just taking the lowest string on the guitar and tuning it down a whole step. And that would be getting you stuff like drop D tuning or drop C sharp tuning if you're coming from the E flat standard. All right, so hopefully this will clear up what is going on with these tunings and the different names. If somebody says this is in D, the tuning is in D, you need to ask them, is it in drop D or is it in D standard? And then you'll know what tuning configuration to get into. And depending on what notes your tuner reads as sharp, the alter notes as sharps or flats, you're going to need to know that, and then need to know how to spell all those flat notes or sharp notes as well. All right, I hope this clears it up. I hope it's not too long-winded. I know it can be a little bit confusing in the very beginning, but as long as you understand what a standard tuning is, drop tuning is, or an open tuning is, I think you'll be able to figure things out a lot easier. All right, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.